All right. So I have one article for you today, or at least in this video. Florida to end vaccine mandates for children, as state surgeon general likens them to slavery. Now, I would love to know why he thinks vaccine mandates are the same as slavery. But I get the feeling that he's not going to actually explain that because that would require actual thought as opposed to vomiting out words to make vaccine mandates seem scary and that he's the champion of freedom or whatever. All right. Children in Florida will no longer be required to receive vaccines against preventable diseases, including measles, mumps, chickenpox, polio, and hepatitis, said Joseph Ladapo, the state's Surgeon General, on Wednesday in a speech during which he likened vaccine mandates to slavery. Okay, because, it's not like we have the largest measles outbreak in this country in years. Yeah, let's just get rid of vaccine mandates. Now, hopefully, the parents of these children and physicians, even though there won't be a mandate, will be like, whoa, 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 cool your jets. You're getting a vaccine because of reasons. So, yeah. Ladapo, handpicked for the role by Ron DeSantis, Florida's Republican governor, gee, how could you have ever known that? Is a longtime skeptic of the benefit of vaccines and has previously been accused of peddling scientific nonsense by public health advocates. Well, let me see. He's likening vaccine mandates to slavery, so yeah, that checks out. In his announcement on Wednesday at a press conference in Tampa, hosted by DeSantis, he said that every state vaccine requirement would be repealed and that he expected the move to receive the blessing of God. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say what he means by a blessing of God is that we'll get rid of the vaccine mandates and disease will just spontaneously disappear. Because that's how shit works. Every last one of them is wrong and drips with disdain and slavery. Again, those are just words. Each word has a meaning. In that sentence, disdain and slavery have zero meaning, said Ladapo, who altered data in a 2022 study about COVID-19 vaccines in an attempt to exaggerate the risk to young men who took one. Now, that should be disqualifying for anybody to believe him when he says the sky is blue or that the grass is green. Because you can't believe a word he says if he's going to alter data. But given this administration in Florida and in Washington, no, being an absolute douche nozzle does not disqualify you from anything. People have a right to make their own decisions. Who am I as a government or anyone else to tell you what you should put in your body? Our body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and your God. Okay, how much do you want to bet that when it comes to abortion, he would not say any of those words? Why? Because he thinks abortion is wrong, but he thinks that vaccines are wrong as well. So, let's just not follow logical thinking at all. Latipo condemned lockdowns and vaccination requirements during the coronavirus pandemic as a time when crazy things did happen, and said that growing skepticism of vaccines were a reflection of God's light against the darkness of tyranny and oppression. Oh, is that why there's fewer Christians than there were, 10 years ago? Because God is pushing back against the darkness of tyranny and oppression. Why don't you ask the folks of DC who are afraid to go out to dinner because we have the National Guard walking down the street? Why don't you ask them about tyranny and oppression? Jesus fuck. And I know I shouldn't say that, but oh well. It came out. What the heck? I mean, again, this is the same guy who would say the same shit about abortion. Ignoring my body is my temple and I should get to put in it what I want. Now, in a way, he's right. You shouldn't be forced to do something you don't want to do. However, that only concerns if it only affects you. Vaccines are important because it doesn't just prevent you from getting deathly sick, if not outright preventing you from getting sick in the first place, depending on the vaccine, but it also protects other people. It protects those who are immunocompromised. It protects those who are too young to get a vaccine. It protects everybody. So that's entirely different than, I should get to decide what I put in my body. On the one hand, yes, you should get to decide if you want to eat just junk food and never eat a carrot in your entire fucking life. Go for it. A la the current president. However, that only affects you. That is not going to affect other people. Your choice of eating badly is not going to affect how other people's health is. Not getting a vaccine could endanger other people. So, and again, the fact that he altered data to make things appear worse than they are is proof that he has an agenda and facts be damned. But the fact that he is talking about religion as opposed to science kind of already told you that he cares about his religion and his faith, and he doesn't give a shit about science. Florida's Department of Health currently has strict requirements for immunizations that must be given during childhood, which are posted to its website. No child can be enrolled in a Florida public school unless they have received a series of shots against a number of diseases. Again, makes perfect sense. I mean, have you ever thought about why you send your child to daycare and they come home with sick and they get you and other people in your family sick? Yeah, because children are walking petri dishes. I mean, of course they're going to be spreading diseases like wildfire. If anybody should be immunized against these diseases, it should be children. Not that adults can't spread disease, but at least before COVID, I was under the impression adults actually had self-control. But COVID has taught me that no, adults don't have self-control. They're just overgrown children. Routine childhood vaccinations will have prevented approximately 508 million cases of illness, 32 million hospitalizations, and 1.13 million deaths among children born in the U.S. between 1994 and 2023, according to a Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report published last year. And thanks to RFK Jr., information like that we will never learn about again. It estimated that the vaccine program nationally resulted in direct savings of $540 billion and societal savings of $2.7 trillion. I can talk. Ladapo gave no details or timeline for the proposed repeal, but said his department would work with lawmakers and the DeSantis administration to make it happen. I love our lawmakers. They're going to have to make decisions. People are going to have to make a decision, he said. People are going to have to choose a side. And I'm telling you right now that the moral side is so simple. Now, see what he did there? This is sort of like when Ford said you can have the Model T in any color as long as it's black. It's the same shit with this. You can make whatever decision you want, but the right one is the decision I make. I mean, come on. If that's not tyranny and oppression, I don't know what is, because he's basically saying that not only does he not want you to be forced to have vaccines, he doesn't want you to take them. He doesn't want your children to get vaccines, because what he thinks about morality means more than no matter how many children end up dying or disfigured or just tortured. That doesn't mean anything. His morality, his idea of what God is telling him to do and what he thinks God wants is far more important than any of the children who are going to end up dying because of this. Ladapo also said that it'll be wonderful for Florida to be the first state to do it. Since the 1980s, all states had school vaccine mandates. If Florida abolishes it, it would be the first in recent times to do so, said Dorit Rice, professor of law at the University of California College of the Law, San Francisco, who specializes in vaccines, law, and policy. But she pointed out that there doesn't seem to be a law introduced yet, which is a big if. She noted that Idaho attempted to end school mandates in April, but ended up carving out exceptions for existing mandates, effectively rendering that part of the law moot, after pushback from advocates. So basically they wanted to get rid of vaccine mandates until advocates were like, what the fuck? Do you want our children to die from polio? Or get seriously disfigured or maimed from polio? And, eventually people, I don't know, they showed him a book of an iron lung. I have no idea what caused these lawmakers to carve out exceptions that basically rendered the law pointless. But whatever it takes. Because I'm pretty sure that these people who are screaming about mandates and screaming to get rid of mandates are the ones who've never read a history book. Because all you have to do is read about what these preventable diseases did to children, did to adults, did to everybody. And you cannot listen to these stories of what happened to these children and think, okay, that's fine. I mean, come on. I'm absolutely convinced that Mitch McConnell's way of being, people call him a turtle, and how he what his face looks like. But I am not convinced that this does not have to do with the fact that he's a freaking polio survivor. I could be wrong. Maybe it has nothing to do with it. But it's also a possibility that his survival of polio did leave some lingering effects. Anyway, I would also add that one reason all states adopted them is that evidence showed school mandates reduce and prevent outbreaks. If Florida does this, it's creating an unfortunate natural experiment with its children as guinea pigs, Rice said. Children deserve better. Yes, but don't you know God will protect them? The same God who had to create a rainbow to remind himself that he doesn't commit genocide anymore. I mean, who the hell needs a reminder not to commit genocide? What the hell? I would also add that one reason I read that already. The Florida Department of Health has been contacted for comment. Of course, they're not going to respond because, they're not going to respond to something like The Guardian. No, they will only respond to right-wing regs that won't question when they claim that this is a vision from God and that God will protect children in absence of vaccines. I'm sorry, if that were the case, we wouldn't need vaccines to freaking begin with. So anyway, that is the end of that article. So with that, I will see you guys in the next video.